Part 5, Alcoholism/Drunkenness. Pamphlets issued by the psych community redefine an alcoholic as anyone who has more than 2 drinks per day. These pamphlets urge intensive therapy. Since tens of millions average more than 2 drinks per day, we can see the attempt to ensnare the masses in the psych web from this hype alone. Lest anyone think that society is becoming more loving by supposedly addressing alcoholism, consider that in my small town there were 25 bars, 15 restaurants, and 7 other stores that sold liquor. Rather, our avaricious society attempts to make money from people at both ends instead of addressing social conditions that facilitate alcohol and drug dependency. In extreme contradiction, many who clearly endanger themselves and others are ignored. For example, those thoroughly addicted to hard drugs or alcoholics who average over a liter of vodka every day roam free until they end up in prisons, asylums, or funeral homes, making money for those who run such places. Alcohol abuse is a leading cause of mental problems, crime, poverty, and premature death. It causes more people to endanger both themselves and others than anything else. Yet psychiatrists and psychologists never advocate the true solution, prohibition. It would hurt their business. Since the 1919 to 1933 prohibition provoked organized crime, I would allow people to make their own private liquor and allow hospitals to administer alcohol so alcoholics can withdraw safely. However, I would make selling and advertising alcohol illegal, thereby shutting down all bars and liquor stores. Despite so-called conventional wisdom, prohibition was largely a success. To understand how it succeeded, see some prohibition websites. They will explain it to you. Although Jesus made water into wine, the wine back then was probably around 3% alcohol against today's 9 to 18%. Also, there are no scripture references to beer or whiskey. Furthermore, none of the early disciples frequented taverns or worked in bars or liquor stores. Alcohol sales doesn't even help the economy, it hurts it. Our tax money is eaten by prisoners, those in mental institutions, and welfare recipients who got in these predicaments via alcohol abuse and are now unemployed. Our healthcare system is unduly expensive from people being crippled by drunk drivers. Undoubtedly, the biggest factor in alcoholism outside of the superfluous availability of alcohol is people driving others to drink. These factors should be eliminated instead of calling psychiatrists and psychologists who take advantage of alcoholics with their phony caring. I empathize with loners who drink heavily because they're lonely from being stuck sitting by themselves, but others might be unjustly replacing healthy social relations with alcohol consumption. By taking away their alcohol, they might befriend loners and thereby eliminate loneliness. With an abundant social life or happily married life, the perceived need for a psychologist, psychiatrist, or alcohol would largely vanish. The blind leading the blind. In an episode of My Favorite Martian, an old 60s TV sitcom, the Martian, adopted as Tim's Uncle Martin, is especially irritated with the hot weather since Mars was very cold. To get some rarefied air, Martin climbs a water tower, because the temperature is cooler the higher you go. While dangling on the water tower's precipice, passerby and police think he's a suicidal jumper. Martin agrees to a psychiatric examination to alleviate everyone's concerns. After seeing Martin for only 30 seconds, the psychiatrist makes a complicated and thorough analysis of Martin's history and mental psyche from birth until late adulthood, which is thoroughly laughable. Martin thinks he can satisfy the psychiatrist by reading his mind and telling him what he wants to hear. However, the psychiatrist's mind can't be properly read because his mind is elsewhere, such as on his troubled marriage. Martin finally understands that and begins discussing the psychiatrist's problems. Ultimately, the psychiatrist becomes the patient and Martin the doctor. I had acquaintances with psychology degrees. After some personal misunderstandings, they became offended and shunned me instead of dealing with the conflict. If people who study the human psyche are so emotionally sensitive and intolerant, their studies are useless. Humanistic psychology and historic theology butt heads. A modern humanistic psychology allegedly developed from so-called ignorant notions about absolute, universal, God-given knowledge of good and evil. Although 4th century church fathers St. Jerome and Augustine acknowledged the principle of synderesis, full knowledge and conscience given to humanity. It is alleged that they believe this as an exclusive principle. That would imply that God created some people to be evil, since some people clearly lacked synderesis. Stay tuned for part 6.